Hello Superset Maniacs and welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to compare Roelly Winklaar at the Chicago Pro, where he disappointingly placed 5th, to his version at this past weekend's Spain Pro or European Championship, where he placed 2nd just behind Nathan Diasha. So without further ado, let's start with the first pose, the front double biceps. First, it has to be mentioned that the Spain Pro had really bad lighting this past weekend. I tried to edit those photos to look as good as possible, and this is what I could do. Looking at the pose, of course, the main difference is the execution. I believe he had an uninspired execution at the Chicago, not spreading his lats as much as he does at the Spain. He also hits a vacuum in Spain, so notice how much of a difference the execution can make. Roelly also looks much fuller at the Spain Pro, especially through the legs. His legs were really downsized at the Chicago Pro, one of the major points he was criticized for. He was also criticized for his conditioning at the Chicago, but in these peaks I believe he looks to be in a better shape than in Spain. However, it's worth mentioning that in Chicago he was fading away more and more during the comparison round. These peaks are taken before the comparison round, when he was hitting his prejudging routine, where he looked pretty much in shape. Overall, this pose has to go to the Spain Pro version, mainly for the execution and the lower body in my opinion. Front lat spread and upper body, I like him more at the Chicago, because like I said, during the posing round he looked like he could even win the show, but he faded away during the comparison round and winded up in 5th. So judging by these peaks we're looking at, I'm inclined to give this one to the Chicago version. It's true that his legs look better in Spain, but his V-taper is much better at the Chicago. His midsection looks better as well, so overall I believe his Chicago version wins the front lat spread pose. The side chest pose, and I might take my words back, because now his Spain version looks so much drier if you look at the striations on his chest, but also on his delt and his arm. Probably the bad lighting doesn't make him justice at all at the Spain Pro, as he clearly looks fuller and drier there in these peaks we're looking at right now. So the Spain Pro version gets another pose. Back double biceps, and from this angle he looks in similar conditioning, but again the bad lighting at the Spain Pro might play a key role here, not doing him justice at all. However, he clearly looks bigger there, so there goes another point for that version. Rear lat spread, and same story. Roelly Winklaar clearly improved from the Chicago. He looks much bigger, not as big as we were used to seeing him, but clearly bigger than in Chicago. His conditioning was pretty much on point, especially for Roelly Winklaar standards, so the Spain Pro version gets another point. Side triceps, and in Spain, Roelly came back to showcasing his right arm again in this pose. At least from these angles, his triceps looks much better at the Spain Pro. The angles are different indeed, but this is what happens when you judge photos. His gut does not look okay at the Chicago. The conditioning looks similar again for these two versions, so overall the Spain version gets the advantage again. Abs and thighs, and Roelly Winklaar is that type of a mass monster who has a great ab and thigh pose. Or he used to be a mass monster, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below if we can still consider Roelly a mass monster, because he is clearly downsized from 2 or 3 years ago. Back to the pose, the main difference is made by the legs, where the Spain version reigns supreme. Like I mentioned, he really improved on that since the Chicago, and since upper body and conditioning wise they look pretty much the same here, this becomes yet another point for the Spain Pro version. Last pose is the most muscular, and even though neither of these two versions look like the Roelly we were used to in this pose, the Spain Pro version is clearly bigger and better. He looks much fuller there in this pose again, and he looks sharper as well. so not too many doubts about which one is the better version here. In conclusion, Roelly Winklaar at the Spain Pro won pretty much every pose against his Chicago Pro version, with the exception of the front lat spread, which I believe it's really about the execution. So yes, Roelly definitely improved since then. Apparently not enough to win the Spain Pro, but who knows? Maybe he can improve even more, and since he's not one of the favorites for the Arnold or the Olympia anymore, maybe he can really surprise us all. We all know that he does better when he's the underdog. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, what do you think he's gonna do at the Arnold and at the Olympia this year? Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more content like this, and as always, thank you guys and see you next time.